Hey everybody, welcome to a special episode of Pig Dr. Osborne's Brain. We are Thursday night. I was on a little mini vacation on Monday, so forgive me for missing Monday, but we're back and ready to go at it. So tonight's topic is all about protecting your microbiome. So many of you have heard that term. There are a lot of different lab tests that are out there that are discussing how you can measure your microbiome or have your microbiome levels checked. Your gut flora, your skin flora, your oral bacteria. We have bacteria all over us. We're outnumbered 10 to 1 human bacteria to human cells. So very, very important that you understand what the microbiome is and how important that this really superorganism is for our health and for our protection, especially as it relates to autoimmune disease. So, talking again about the microbiome. And so, what really is the microbiome? It is a conglomeration of different bacteria that we have on our bodies and in our bodies. Very, very critical. Why? The microbiome serves a multitude of different functions. Now, some of these functions are important. Why? Because your bacteria that live inside of you, right? What do they do? Some of them actually produce vitamins. And so as an example, vitamin K2, about 50% of your need for vitamin K every day is synthesized in your gut by your bacteria that live in your intestines. So, if you don't have adequate quantities of bacteria in your intestine, you can become vitamin K deficient. Now, vitamin K is extremely important. It is a vitamin responsible for helping you clot your blood. It's also a vitamin responsible for helping you mineralize your bone and forming the protein backbone of your bone structure. So vitamin K deficiency can contribute to bone loss. It can contribute to blood clotting disorders. So don't really want to not have adequate quantities. The bacteria in your colon can also produce biotin, which is also known as vitamin B8. Now, some people refer to this as the skin, hair, and nail vitamin. It's very, very important for producing healthy skin, hair, and nail tissue. So biotin also important for the metabolism of fat, both building fatty tissues as well as breaking fat down for energy. So biotin deficiency can cause all kinds of problems, including chronic hyperinflammatory skin conditions like seborrheic dermatitis. So you don't want to go without biotin. And about 50% of your daily need for biotin also comes from your microbiome in your GI tract. So part of the function of these bacteria, very, very critical for the formation of vitamins and minerals. And just, again, biotin and vitamin K are just two examples. Now, other functions of the microbiome that you want to know about, very, very important, as they produce chemical messengers that communicate, especially in your GI tract. They produce chemicals that communicate to what's called your gastro-associated lymphoid tissue, your GALT. Think of your GALT, gastro-associated lymphoid tissue, as a set of tonsils, a big set of tonsils that wraps around your small intestine. It's where 70% of your immune system is concentrated. And the bacteria that live in your intestines communicate with this GALT material with your immune system. And basically it's what's called immune crosstalk. The bacteria communicate with your immune system communicates back to the bacteria. So there's this kind of two-way highway of information going on. And what the bacteria are transmitting is information about the contents of your GI tract so that your immune system can appropriately respond. So my point in saying all that is your bacteria talk to your immune system about potential threats. So if you don't have good bacteria, or if you've been hammered with antibiotic after antibiotic for year after year, what can happen is you can have a reduced immune crosstalk, which makes your body more susceptible to potential immune threats that you eat. Now, we all eat immune threats within our food. I mean, even if you're eating a perfectly organic diet and everything about your food is correct, remember that you're eating bacteria, you're eating viruses, you're eating potential parasites, you're eating things that are on your food that if they get down in your GI tract and you don't have a stabilized immune system and you don't have a stabilized GI tract, in essence, a leaky gut, right? You can actually, and without this immune crosstalk, your immune system won't respond as aggressively or as quickly as it needs to the potential threats within the food. So again, the GALT, communicating to your GALT is one of the jobs of your microbiome. Let's see here. We've got Tara chiming in from the Ozarks in Missouri. I mean, I think that's what MO is. It's Missouri. Well, I know that's what MO is, but yeah, I'm going to assume you mean Missouri because the Ozarks are in other states, not just Missouri. Deanna Charisse is from Naples. And we've got Emma tonight following from Halifax, Nova Scotia. Welcome from Canada. Who else is out there? Where else are you from? Go ahead and let me know in the feed. And if you've got questions tonight as we go through, first come, first serve. So if you want to go ahead and start typing those questions in, I'll do my best to get as many of them answered before the end of the show tonight. Oh, Marie, thank you. That's so sweet. Hi, my favorite doc from Toronto, Canada. Let's see if you say my name correct this time. I hope I did. I hope I didn't just blow it. I'm horrible with names. I've really got to see and talk to somebody multiple times before I really can say or pronounce their name correctly, especially if it's a unique spelling or a unique way to say it. So anyway, beside the point, back to the microbiome. So again, we're talking about different functions of the microbiome. We talked about how it's important for producing vitamins and minerals in your GI tract, but we also talk about how it's important for communicating with your immune system. One of the other very, very critical functions of your microbiome, yeah, I did get your name right. All right, perfect. One of the other functions of your microbiome is it's the bacteria within your intestines, particularly, they produce neurochemicals. So things like serotonin and dopamine, they help to make them. So if you've ever heard of somebody having a gut feeling, right? That old cliche saying, it's because your gut is actually, through the microbiome, is a producer of neurotransmitters that communicates to your brain. As a matter of fact, about 90% of all of your serotonin is produced in your GI tract. And about 60% of your dopamine is produced in your GI tract. So when you think about the microbiome, think of the implication that just a single antibiotic might have. If you take an antibiotic and it wipes out your gut flora or greatly diminishes your gut flora, think of the implication that can have on serotonin, on dopamine, on your vitamins, on your immune crosstalk. And now think of all the side effects associated with so many different forms of antibiotics. So again, very, very important functions. If you understand the function, the purpose of the microbiome, you understand better how we can protect it, which is what tonight is all about. Let's see here. We've got Rosa Valdez from Arizona. Thanks for joining us tonight, Rosa. Looks like the questions are coming in pretty steady now. So again, if you've got questions, chime in. We're going to take them first come, first serve. And if you haven't spoken up yet, don't be shy. Say hello. We want to know who you are and where you're from. So again, back on the microbiome, we've got bacteria that are critical in our gut. Most people think of the microbiome as what's in your gut, but you actually it starts in your mouth. And where a lot of microbiome population and fertilization, that's what the term we'll use is fertilization, where this occurs is actually in childbirth. When a baby's being born, generally nowadays, right, it's in a hospitalized environment. We've got babies coming, and oftentimes moms are scheduling C-sections or OB-GYNs are scheduling C-sections. And this, unfortunately, is a common practice today, but it's a bad common practice. It's a dangerous common practice. And one of the reasons why is because a cesarean section, if it's not a true medical emergency, which, they can be, and there are times where a cesarean can save a mom's life and save a baby's life. So definitely there are times where that should be done. But a lot of times it shouldn't be done at all. It's just the doctor wanting to do it or making the judgment call to do it or pulling the trigger too soon. And I've seen this happen with a number of people because understand this, when you're in a hospital environment, first of all, the type of bacteria in a hospital environment are some of the most dangerous. They're some of the most antibiotic resistant forms of bacteria, things like MRSA, methicillin resistant Staph aureus, right? These types of infectious bacteria, they're everywhere in the hospital. Actually, we call them nosocomial bacteria, and they have the potential to infect people who are staying in the hospital and who has a weaker immune system than a baby, right? So you've got baby being born through a cesarean. Now, where babies generally are inoculated, basically are fertilized, they're inoculated, their gut flora comes from the vaginal canal as they're being delivered from mom. So if the baby is born through cesarean, we don't get that initial inoculation in the mouth. And so a lot of the lactobacillus and a lot of the bifidobacter bacteria the very, very critical predominant species of the microbiome that colonize the GI tract, that occurs again through birth. So if we take away that capacity of interaction through a cesarean section, we end up with babies that have higher propensities toward chronic disease. We end up with babies who have higher propensity toward allergies and to food, particularly food allergies and oral intolerance to things. So these are the ones that become more sick. They're the ones that can struggle the most. So there's actually a practice that's now being done where mothers, especially if you've got a midwife or a doula, where they're actually taking the vaginal fluid from the childbirth and they're wiping down the face of the infant. So where there's a cesarean section being performed, they're using this vaginal cloth swathing technique to introduce the bacteria from the vaginal canal into the oral cavity of the child to help us better establish a microbiome. So if you're up for a cesarean section, you definitely want to walk away. How do you protect your baby, your unborn baby's microbiome? You want to make sure to have this conversation with the OB-GYN and make sure that you can make that happen within the delivery room, because again, it's super critical that baby is exposed to mom's vaginal canal, or at least the fluids from it where those bacteria are, so that we can get an inoculation in a population of the microbiome as the baby's being born. So again, that's one way. So think of it as that's the first way you can protect the microbiome. Beyond that, let's think about where the microbiome, where the different areas of major players of our microbiome are. So the oral microbiome is very important. Talk to any biological dentist or any environmental dentist, and they'll talk your ear off about the healthy bacteria that live in the mouth, and the unhealthy bacteria, if they colonize the mouth, that can create inflammation, gum recession, tooth infection, and all kinds of other issues, increased risk for cavities. So one of the ways we want to protect our microbiome is through our oral health. My advice is making sure that you're flossing, making sure you use a water pick so that so that you don't let trapped debris get stuck and grow the wrong kind of bacteria, within the oral cavity. But one of the other things is analyze your toothpaste and analyze your mouthwash, because a lot of these products contain triclosan, which is a type of antibacterial agent, which can be extremely toxic to your microbiome. So you don't want to make a habit of using oral hygiene products that destroy good bacteria within your mouth. So again, there are a lot of different natural forms of toothpaste, things that you can use that won't have such a strong antibiotic effect on the mouth. And one of them is toothpaste made with xylitol. Xylitol actually is great for the health of teeth. Without again, it's a sweet flavor, so it's one of the ways you can actually sweeten a toothpaste without adding the strong antibiotic ingredients. So make sure that you're not using toxic ingredients within your mouthwash or toothpaste. The other one I don't recommend, or I recommend against, is fluoride. Fluoride is a natural antibiotic, and fluoride can kill bacteria. And in that sense, if you're using fluoride on a regular basis, that can contribute to, again, a reduction in the microbiome in your oral cavity. So if you haven't already, my advice to you would be, if you really want to dive into this a lot deeper, get with either an environmental dentist or a dentist that specializes in natural approaches to dental care, because it's going to be your best bet. And of course, they're going to be the experts in the oral microbiome and help you out quite a bit with understanding what you should be avoiding in more detail. And beyond those things, beyond the oral microbiome, down deeper, obviously we have the GI tract, which is the intestinal microbiome. And as I mentioned earlier, we've got vitamin production, we've got immune system crosstalk, we've got neurotransmitter production. More importantly, one of the things we didn't talk about is what these bacteria do. They help you digest your food. So many of these bacteria break down different components of fiber, break down different components of carbs, fats, proteins, and macronutrients so that you can digest them better. This is one of the reasons why chronic antibiotic users have really bad digestive problems, or have a tendency toward really bad digestive problems. They don't break their food down very well. So when they eat it, it's just not being properly broken down. The nutrients from it are not being properly absorbed. So it can set the stage for malnutrition, not just from an energy perspective, not absorbing adequate energy or energy production from carbs, fats, or proteins, but also from the perspective of vitamins and minerals, not getting adequate quantities of the vitamins and minerals. So, you want to make sure that, again, that you're protecting your microbiome. Now, You have a microbiome as well in your skin. Those are really the oral cavity, the GI tract, and the skin are the three main microbiomes that you have a great degree of control over protecting. And a lot of people use a lot of products on their skin that have antibacterial properties as well, whether it's in your cosmetics or soaps or lotions or shampoos, your skincare products. Remember, if you're using really, really rigid and really strong antibiotic products in your soaps, you remember you're washing away your microbiome. You're literally washing it off of your skin. This is one of the biggest reasons I see in my practice so many people coming in with severely dry skin. It's one of the reasons I see people have excessive cystic acne or inflammatory acne or infectious types of acne. We'll see people that come in with different forms of dermatitis as a result of over soaping. Remember, soap is an antibiotic. I recommend a glycerin soap or a Castile soap if you're using soaps. And I also recommend not bathing as frequently as what you may think. Now, a lot of you might be freaking out right now because you're thinking, what do you mean don't bathe as frequent? There is a whole field of science around this issue of hygiene. And I'm going to put that up there for you. It's called the Hygiene Hypothesis. And there's a lot of compelling data that says that, look, as we've evolved as a society, we've gone more away from nature. We've gone more toward, sterilized environments. We've gone toward germ-phobic attitudes, meaning we're scared of germs. We think germs are the root cause of all problems. And the reality is we need germs. Germs are very, very critical for shaping us. Again, that's what our microbiome is. It's germs. Even some of the types of germs that we're terrified of, like staph or strep, you have normal types of staph and normal types of strep as part of your microbiome. If you wash them all away and you lose your bacterial microbiome, you lose a lot of the function of your skin as well. So a lot of the protection and the oil production and the photo protection from sunlight. You lose a lot of that when you don't have a healthy microbiome on the skin. So again, very, very important that you understand that if you're using antibacterial soaps, aggressive antibacterial soaps, if you're showering 2, 3, 4 times a day, as some people do, being overly hygienic, they're cleaning themselves too much, you can overdo it. So think of it as a spectrum, just like anything in life. We all hear that term, all things in moderation. Well, think of cleanliness as a spectrum. You have, hyper cleanliness and you have filth, right? And so on that spectrum, if we go back in time and we look at where did this whole phobia of germs come from? It came from, pioneering doctors who discovered that washing surgical equipment before operating reduced people from dying from infection. Pioneering doctors who discovered that when you left the morgue doing an autopsy, you couldn't go deliver a baby. And that wasn't a good idea because you had to wash your hands first. These were the simple discoveries that were made. Louis Pasteur, the French scientist who discovered that the heating process that could kill bacteria. So we have this history of killing germs and that being a successful thing in terms of reducing disease. But you can go too far. So if you overkill germs, if you kill too many, you go too far in the other direction. And that's what all the science behind the hygiene hypothesis really revolves around. It's being too clean. How many showers in a day are too many showers, right? How much soap is too much soap? I've had nurses that come into my office as patients and they've washed their hands, 16 times a day. And the microbiome on their hands is shot and they've got severe dermatitis all over their hands because they're being forced to wash their hands. They can't keep the microbiome, on their hands and the oil on their hands well enough. It just dries them out and it puts them at risk for disease. So where do you draw the line? Where do you say, okay, I need to wash my hands this time versus, maybe I've already washed my hands enough. And I think, that's part of the conversation that needs to be had and needs to be revisited in science and in medicine, because a lot of the practices today actually flip in the other direction. Again, the intent is that we're reducing bacteria. And if you've got somebody who's, immunosuppressed in a hospital environment who you're trying to protect, of course, you don't want somebody to walk in there with MRSA all over their hands and contaminate that immunosuppressed person. But, what are other precautions that can be done that don't completely destroy the microbiome off of our skin, out of our oral cavity or out of our GI tracts? These are the new approaches that need to be looked at. So a lot of things are coming through the pipeline. Toothpaste with probiotics in them, hand creams and lotions with probiotics in them. And I think there's some great products that are going to be coming out of all this new information and new science. But one of the best things that you can do is you can consume fermented foods. Now, I'm not a big fan of kombucha, and I know maybe a lot of you just started frowning when you heard me say that. Kombucha is generally fermented with sugar, so I don't typically tend to recommend a lot of kombucha. I like to recommend foods that are fermented naturally in salt or brine, where you're not adding sugar to the ferment, because a lot of times what happens is the sugar that gets added is a GMO type of sugar. It's genetically modified sugar cane or some other type of GMO sugar, especially if you're buying these drinks over, in the cold section of the market, these kombucha teas and other drinks that are being made. It's, a lot of what's used in that whole fermentation process is GMO, can be GMO ingredients. So you don't want to have bacteria in a beverage that were fed genetically modified sugar in order for them to grow. I mean, that, genetically modified sugar is not good for you, and it's not good for the bacteria either. So I recommend salt ferments more. So things like sauerkraut, things like fermented cauliflower, fermented broccoli. These are things that vegetables can be fermented, carrots can be fermented very easily in salt and water, and can be excellent sources of probiotic or of lactobacillus bifidobacteria, different strains or species of the bacteria that can help colonize your GI tract and protect your GI tract, and give your GI tract a diversity of different microbiota with different functions, because some types of bacteria can break down foods with histamine. Some types of bacteria can break down oxalates. Some types of bacteria can break down carbs, fats, and proteins better. So we have different forms of bacteria that have different jobs to do in our GI tract. So the more diverse of a microbiome that we have, generally speaking, the healthier and the more resilient and the more dynamic to the foods that we are eating that we're going to be. So a lot of people today that develop food intolerance or oral intolerance to food, or hyperallergenicity where they can't eat anything, it's because their bacteria in their GI tract has been so destroyed or so compromised over time that they've lost the ability to digest processed food, talk to their immune system, and so they're sick as a result of it. So fermented food, natural fermented food, one of the best ways to get to help reestablish the microbiome. One of the other things that I highly recommend that you do, if you haven't, or if you have the capacity, is to grow a garden, is to get out and get your hands in the dirt. Your hands in the dirt, your hands in the soil, where there's lots of soil-based microorganisms that are healthy for your skin and healthy for you. There've been a number of books that have been written on this very, very topic. In essence, playing in the dirt connects you to the earth, where there are lots of healthy bacteria that you can get exposure to. And we've come so far the other direction. We're all told now, wash your hands, don't play in the dirt, stay out of the dirt, when in the reality is being connected to soil, being connected to the earth is a big, big part of how you maintain a healthy microbiome. And in my experience, doing that combined with fermented foods, nothing is better than maintaining a healthy microbiome than doing just those two particular functions, along with coupled sunshine. So very, very important that those are things that you can do that don't cost you any money. They're, for all intents and purposes, they're free, minus the cost of the food. But you can ferment your food. It doesn't cost you anything to do that at home. You just have to have a big crock and water to be able to do that with. So again, that and being in the dirt and having your hands in the dirt, doing some gardening, going outside, going on a camping trip, going on a vacation that's involved with being outdoors. These are all things that can be done, and they're relatively free, that are very, very helpful in helping your microbiome and helping stabilize your health. Okay, let's see here. We got a bunch of questions coming in. So Marianne, hello, or laugh out loud. I ate dirt when I was young. That's good. So I did too. Like, we used to make mud pies in the backyard. So that's one of the things. I mean, we'd go out with little dishes, and we had a little shovel, and we'd scoop the dirt in there. We'd make mud pie, and then we'd throw it at each other, and we'd have a great time. So yeah, playing in the dirt can be actually quite fun. Good for the soul, good for the spirit, but also good for the microbiome. All right. Questions. Wow, we got a ton of questions coming in. I don't know if I'm going to have time to answer them all, but we're going to get started on them. Wanda from Tennessee is chiming in tonight. Good night or good evening to you, Wanda. Let's see. Question coming in. Let's see. I have celiac disease and have been gluten-free for 4 years. I've been eliminating grain and following your book, and I'm finding that I'm allergic or having a reaction to things that never bothered me before. I made an appointment with you for April. I'm so excited to get the book to the bottom of this. Okay, great, Julie. I'm glad you did. But while you're waiting, let's do a couple of things. A couple of things that might be helpful for you. One of the things that I would recommend that you do, aside from what I've said on the show tonight, is you can start on a decently dosed probiotic. It's very, very safe to do, and it might be very, very effective for you. The one I recommend is called Biotic Defense, which you can find on Gluten Free Society, and you can start with 2 of those a day as kind of a starter kit for helping rebuild your microbiome. Because if you've just been following my book here recently, it depends on whether you were gluten-free for 4 years or whether you were grain-free for 4 years, and how diverse your diet is and whether or not you're allergic to other foods that you're eating. All that's going to play a role in this. But a probiotic, super safe to do and can be very, very effective at helping kind of start to colonize your GI tract from years of that damage. Let's see here. Oh, good evening, Misty. Misty chiming in from the Scleroderma Functional Medicine group. Good to see you back again. Let's see here. Elizabeth Cromwell. Hi from Ocala, Florida. Studied much of your website. Thank you. Great help. I have lupus and 3 or 4 other autoimmune problems. Did an elimination food journal over a year, off meds for 4 years now. Big returning troubles again. Cannot pinpoint the problem. Elimination again or start over. Look, Elizabeth, the reality is if you did really, really well and now you're starting to digress, the likelihood that you've missed some very, very big and very, very important things is quite high. Some of the more common triggers when somebody's got a dialed in diet, especially if you're following No Grain, No Pain. So those of you who are new tonight and haven't read No Grain, No Pain, that really is the homework assignment I give you as you're following the Pick Dr. Osborne's Brain Show, because you'll take so much more away from the show if you have that core background of knowledge. But if you're already following that protocol in the No Grain, No Pain book, go to chapter 10. I would encourage you, Elizabeth, go to chapter 10 and read about kind of the advanced strategies, because it could be that you've developed food allergies that you haven't properly been tested for, and those are creating part of your problem. It could be that you've picked up a gut bug. It could be that you've picked up or that you don't have adequate quantities of certain vitamins or minerals, for example, zinc deficiency or vitamin D deficiency. All by itself can recreate and re-trigger an autoimmune sequence. So those are some things that again, if you work with a functional medicine practitioner or doctor, you might be able to get some skilled and qualified testing performed that will help you navigate those waters specifically. Okay, good question. Good question. So Misty's chiming in. I provide anesthesia during a C-section, and the OB nurse does at my hospital this within minutes. I'm going to assume you're talking about vaginal swatting as a technique to help the baby's microbiota get formed. So yeah, I'm glad to hear that somebody out there is actually doing that, and glad to hear that you're experiencing that directly. Let's see here. So another question. I switched to shea butter organic soap, have eczema. Should I switch? Wash dishes with organic, wear gloves, to hot water? Not sure I understand that question. Eczema, if depending on the quantity of washes that you're getting in, a lot of people just overwash and they dry the oil on their skin completely up. One of the best oils to apply is shea butter. After you wash your hands, because remember, when you're washing your hands, you're washing all that oil away, and that when you wash that oil away, it can create a major problem. Now, the second thing that you can do is you can apply a jojoba oil. Jojoba oil is a lot like the natural oil your skin produces, and so if you're having to wash your hands aggressively, that's another strategy that you can implement. Let's see. What's the best protocol to get rid of H. pylori? There isn't one. It depends on the person. There are a lot of things that are effective. Berberine as a natural antibiotic, tea tree oil, oregano. These all can be effective. And sometimes it's not about getting rid of H. pylori. It's about minimizing the H. pylori overgrowth. So probiotics, high doses of probiotics can oftentimes be a very, very effective tool, or a very, very effective way to do that as well. Let's see here. Yeah, let's see. All right. There are a few questions. I'm not quite sure the meaning, so you got to chime in and you got to either reword them so I can understand them. Reword them. Otherwise, it's hard for me to answer questions that are not written in a manner that I can extrapolate. So. Okay. Anyway, it looks like we're out of time regardless. So again, if you enjoy the program, make sure you tune in Monday evenings. We'll be back Monday regular time, and make sure you subscribe. If you're not already subscribing to our feed, make sure you subscribe and select the feature our feed in your post. And that way, when we go live, you'll get a notification that we're going live. So again, if you like this information, if you think it might be helpful for somebody else in your family, a friend, somebody you love, make sure you share it, make sure you tag them in it, and we'll see you on Monday evening for another episode of Pig Dr. Osborne's Brain. Have a great night. Take care.